What legal documents do you need when you're starting a business? You're starting maybe a side hustle or even going full-time with something, and you want to make sure you're doing it the right way. Well, the first thing we recommend is setting up an LLC with an operating agreement, and you can check out one of our videos on how to do that now. The next thing is making sure that you have documents in place to protect you and your business. So I'm gonna pull up a slide here and we're gonna go through which ones you need. All right, here we go. We've got the legal documents. There's kind of three different buckets here. The owners, people that you've hired, workers, and then customers and clients. So we're gonna switch back and forth here. So for owners, you just need an operating agreement. That means even if you're a single member LLC, I still want you to write in 100% owner and sign it so that there's never an issue about it. It also establishes the formality of the LLC being separate. The second scenario is you're working with other people and you have multiple owners. Let's say there's 3 of you or 2 of you. You really need to dive into that operating agreement. Potentially hire a lawyer to make sure that you're asking questions. What happens if someone leaves? How do we break a vote if we're all disagreeing? If we want to raise money or take on debt or start a new brand or whatever it is, or sell the company. We want to talk about these things early on when we're all excited and on the same page rather than coming back to it. All right, let's go back to our slide. So workers, these are, you're going to need an employment agreement and or an independent contractor agreement. So what are these scenarios? It's an employee, we're hiring someone full-time. They don't work for anyone else really but us. We want to lay out those terms. Same thing with an independent contractor. Let's say you've got someone editing your podcast or creating graphic designs. So important things you want to have in there are clauses like IP assignment, work for hire. So if someone is designing or editing or cutting my podcast or videos or YouTube videos, I want to make sure that they are assigning all those rights over to my business. Aside from that, you also want to be clear on what the deliverables are, what the expectations are. Particularly with independent contractor, you want to say, this is what I expect and this is when I expect it. And that way they can look at it and agree, and y'all will have a nice meeting of the minds. You can also consider things like non-solicitation, which is a really useful thing with independent contractors. Let's say you've got an agency model, you're a marketing company, and you're working, you've got a social media manager that works for you, and they develop a relationship with a client. Well, you want to have a clause in there that says, I'm paying you to serve this relationship. If you leave or we stop working, you can't then poach, my client. All it is protecting the business and just making sure you're able to grow without having to worry about, poaching or being undercut or something like that. It's a very useful thing. Most people feel like it's pretty fair, and it is fair. You paid someone to develop a relationship, and that should be honored. There are things like non-competes and other stuff you can consider and put in there. But it's really important you get everything on paper so you can, show that you own the IP, and if there's a non-solicitation or other clauses like that, it's easy to prove. All right, our last little bucket's a big one. Customers and clients. All right, you see I've got 2 in there. It's client service agreement. So, let's take the marketing, your social media manager. You want to have an agreement that outlines everything you're going to do for them and how much they're going to pay you in return. If you have a product, you want to have, terms of use, some sort of terms of service of them taking it on. But it's not just that. It's also, let's say we're, Instagram account. We have disclosures we have to make if someone sponsors us. So there's, privacy policies you need to be compliant about. There's, your website terms of use. Don't, talk defamatory. Don't use, stolen copyrights, things like that. You also want to consider disclaimers. So if you're a podcast talking about nutrition, all you want to do is disclaim basically the reality of the situation, which is we're trying to give you really good, helpful information. We have different guests. but we don't know your health history, so it may not apply to you. Just like I'll tell you right now, I am a lawyer, but I don't know your business. I'm trying to help, and I hope this video is very helpful for you, but this is not customized advice to you particularly. This is general advice that I hope you can use and implement, of course. So that is my disclaimer. They don't have to be obnoxious. They can just be built in. But usually on like a podcast, you'll see on our website, Drafted Legal, it has a disclaimer that just says that. You know, it's not trying to disclaim every single, thing. It's just creating the limits of my ability to serve you, which is I can give you general information, but unless you hire us as a law firm or use Drafted Legal's templates, then there's no real relationship other than me trying to provide helpful information. Same with your podcast or your website. You weren't talking about health, say I'm not a physician, or I'm not your physician, that sort of thing. We usually recommend, I've got several young kids, it's almost like you don't want to assume anything. You want to explain very clearly what you are doing and what you aren't doing. And it can be done in just a couple of sentences. So that kind of goes through, we'll recap real quick what documents we need. All right, we've got owners. If we've got multiple ones, we need operating agreement that's fleshed out. If single member, just show that we have 100%. For that, this is operating agreements for an LLC. If you have a corporation, it would be bylaws or shareholders agreement. For anyone you hire, we want an employment agreement or an independent contractor agreement, depending on which one they are. And then for customers, a lot of this is, some of it's compliance, but then anytime someone's buying something from you, they need to sign on to your terms, which may limit your liability or warranty or refund, that sort of thing. Or if it's an ongoing service agreement, you want to outline all of those terms as well, how much it costs, how do you cancel, that sort of thing. And then you just want to consider your disclaimers, your disclosures, your website policies, waivers of liability, that sort of thing. So that's kind of a general overview of where you would start. I hope that doesn't feel too daunting. These are just the people you are interacting with. And what we like you to have is just a very clear meeting of the minds of, oh, this is the deal. When people get in disputes, we find that the two people who are in the dispute both think two different things were agreed upon. So we want to make sure you're real clear. So if you're paying someone, $15 an hour for graphic design, we want that to be clear, because sometimes we've had multiple conversations or text or email, particularly with clients. Let's say one, cancels a session. What do we do about that? Is there a 24-hour cancellation rule? But if we have policies and terms laid out, it's very helpful to make sure that expectations are good and that everyone is very happy and that your relationships go smoothly. So you can go to draftedlegal.com. We've got all sorts of templates, and you can have LLCs filed for you by that website. So we hope this is helpful. Drop some comments below if you got any questions, and best of luck.